We're at day 29 already. Cannot believe it's almost been a month of doing this. Can't exactly say that I'm proud of myself. I can say that I've been consistent, but we got to get better every morning. One of the ways we're going to do this is by getting up and getting at it. I started this off not so I'd wake up at some ridiculous early hour, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, some weird Wes Watson 2:45 wake up call. This is just simply to help me get my mind straight for the rest of my day because so many times I wake up in the morning and I sit there. I sit in my chair. I don't have to be at work until later on. So I go to the gym first. I do all my stuff later because I work later. But there's so much time that I leave on the table because I'm just sitting there. I, I guess I could still be in bed, but see, I'm not really awake. I'm just sort of laying there in bed. I wake up, I go to my chair, I just sort of lay there or sit there or scroll. So I developed this morning routine process. It's based on three things. When we wake up in the morning, we're chronically dehydrated. You've been sweating, you've been peeing, hopefully in a toilet. But all throughout the night, water has been escaping your body. And it's not just water, it's salt, it's electrolytes. We've got to put that back in. That's generally priority number one. Priority number two is blood oxidation levels are low. What that means is you don't have a whole lot of blood, you don't have a whole lot of oxygen in your blood. That's why you have mental fatigue. So, in order to increase the clarity to your brain, we need to drive oxygen into the body. Breathing deeply helps us get oxygen into our lungs. The lungs will put the oxygen into our blood, the circulation, blah, blah, blah. You understand what I'm saying. But how we do that is through deep breathing. How do we deep breathe quickly? With some exercise. This isn't going to be like a gym workout. This is just some burpees or some push ups, just something really quick. Bam, 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 because we want to get blood flow. We want to get it circulating. We want to be ready for what's next. Now, you can see I'm outside. I'm kind of under a cover right now. But the third thing we want to do is get some sunlight, get some vitamin D production. Sunlight is a signal to your body to wake up. It's kind of like nature's own screen. Talk about screen time at night and how we got to blue screen it because we're trying to signal our body it's time to go to sleep. We're doing the opposite in the morning. We're signaling our body, hey, it's time to wake up. We got things that we need to do. And I'm actually really, really thirsty, so I don't have my electrolytes. Got my plastic water bottle. Probably got tons of microplastics in here, but we're thirsty. And quit making excuses. If it's so important to you, go buy a copper cup. Whatever. All right. And again, no electrolytes, but I got my pink Himalayan salt. So we're doing a quarter tablespoon right on top, 16 ounces of water. Let's go. It's saltwater sludge drinking time. Honestly, I cannot hype this up enough. I do feel way, way better and a huge difference by adding the salt into the water. Just got to make sure that it's mixed up really, really well. If not, you're going to be leaving some residue down there at the bottom. I think, yep, we're going to have to handle that. But you know what I mean. Microphone died. Got me a handy dandy backup. I really don't like using microphones to do this. I'd rather just be able to talk like straight to the screen or whatever and have like a boom mic or something like that. And I'm hearing a strange noise from a room where nobody should be in. Hang on a second. All right, anyway. Oh, man, one of the things we do as people is this comparison thing. And it's always an upward comparison, right? It's always we're looking at somebody who's got something that we don't have. And a lot of times we allow, and I do this myself all the time, like I don't want to say hate, but there's definitely jealousy there because you see something that somebody else has worked for and you want it. You want it for yourself. This is perfectly 100% understandable. But we got to learn how to use jealousy, because I forgot who said it, but somebody said that jealousy is just an invitation from your future self to do better. Oh man, we've talked about it before. You can look at the gap between what somebody else has or where you want to be and then where you're at. Where you want to be would be like your ideal self, your fulfilled potential. Where you're at now, that's your actual self. That's where you actually are. And you have to close the gap between the two. And you can use jealousy as motivation. You can incorporate it. And as it becomes motivation, you can actually use it and parlay that into a disciplined life. Now, this disciplined life is clearly got to be a life that moves you forward in every direction, just a little bit every day. You don't have to make $1 million overnight. You don't have to make another $2,000 overnight. You don't have to get jacked overnight. You don't have to have a bicep vein pop up overnight. But all of the things that you want, you should have a process in place to help you get those things. Because if you're saying that you want them with your words, or if you're thinking that you want them with your thoughts, but there's no action behind the thoughts or words, that's the cognitive dissonance. And that's where people get frustrated. And that's mostly where people just end up their whole life, is they say one thing, but their thoughts and their actions are doing something completely opposite. And we've talked about this before too. It's because most people are people pleasers. They've never developed themselves even to the point where they know what they actually want. They just want what they think they want because that's what people tell them. They look around and they see what other people are doing and the smiles on their faces. This is interpreted as happiness. This is interpreted as something that we want. But upon closer inspection, most of the people that are walking around with smiles on their face are looking back at us, seeing something in our life that they want. It's sort of like this just endless loop cycle. It happens so much when we like go to the mall or go to the movies or go to the shopping center or somewhere like that. Anyway, but upward comparison and the distance between where we're at and where we want to be. That's the margin of despair. And that process that we talk about, it's got to close the margin of despair a little bit every single day. Because if it doesn't, then you're just going to be frustrated. You're just going to end up concentrating on your past failures, and you're going to be scared to do anything in the future because you're scared you're going to fail again. And it's so easy to scroll social media and just fall into the comparison trap. And again, we're talking about an upward comparison. We don't really talk about a downward comparison too much. And that's actually, it's kind of where we can start today, is gratitude. Gratitude is always going to be grounding. And we compare ourselves downwardly. What we're doing is we're looking at people who are not as fortunate as us. I mean, they might not have a place to stay. They might have a serious health issue. There's something about them that when we look at our life, there's instant gratitude. And I hate to say it like that because, some poor amputee missing an arm, and we've got two arms. But my thing is, what are we doing with our two arms? Are we using them the way we should be? Are we using them constructively to get us to our potential self? Are we using it to construct the ideal body that we want? Or are we using it to shovel poison in our mouth every single day? So we got upward comparison, and that's generally, I'm not going to say it's negative, but we have to be really careful with it and not allow like a jealousy or a hatred or an intense envy to enter our emotional state if we're not ready, if we're not prepared to use that negative energy and turn it into something positive, turn it into that invitation from our potential self to invite us to hurry the hell up and to do what we need to do. That's how we've got to look at it. And we use a downward comparison for gratitude to understand us what we've been blessed with. So contentment. We need to understand and to be happy with the blessings that we have, but we can't be complacent. Complacent is when you just stop. You don't develop yourself anymore. You're happy with your own development. And a lot of times, older people in their 80s or 90s, even then they can still get better, but they don't have that same sort of drive and hunger that they did when they were younger. And that's what we have to capitalize on now. So we have to show gratitude and be content, but we can't let that contentment bleed over into complacency. Because once we become complacent, man, it's like your potential just shuts itself completely off. And so many of us, we hit complacency in like our 20s. Could you imagine that? Imagine being the fully developed person in your 20s, and then the rest of your life, you're just feeding basically this retarded version of yourself and just only increasing in magnitude and intensity the shortcomings of this undeveloped child. That's what it is. So we can never, ever, ever stop. And if you don't know where to start, if you have no clue, if you're dead end job, shitty marriage, you got brats for kids, I don't know. I mean, if you can just stack every reason in the world to just not do anything at all, to never get out of bed, start with yourself. Start with your body, your physical appearance, the way you announce yourself to the world. That's how we know you, by your physical appearance. I mean, I hate saying we judge people based on their appearances, but it is the first thing we take in with our eyes. So it's very, very important that we communicate who we are through our physical presentation. And most of us, there's always one or two things about ourselves that we can change. That's why it's so important to not necessarily concentrate on it, but do make it a priority, because generally speaking, if you change something about the way you look and you lose weight or you add muscle, what that's going to do is it's going to make you healthier by default. You can't make those changes without not becoming healthy. I mean, unless you just stop eating or do some weird crash diet or something like that. There's always exceptions to the rules. But that's why it's so important. If you don't know where to start with yourself. Start with a physical change. Start with something that you can do each and every day to develop a process that you can develop pride in. And this process, it's not limited to physicality. You can use this process to become a morning person like what I'm doing. You can use this process to have more motivation throughout your day. You can use this process to be a better wife or husband to your kids. The only thing you've got to understand, you have to be willing to accept your vulnerabilities, your weaknesses, because unless you acknowledge where you need work, how are you going to develop a plan to address those issues? So it always comes down to us first. Number one, we've got to know who we are, develop a strong sense of identity. And if we're not that person already, then we need to understand how we can become that person. But my goodness, I've been ranting. Let's go do some burpees, or maybe just some push-ups. Just some push-ups for today.
Honestly, kind of just bitched out on burpees today. But we ain't bitching out on the exercise and what it's supposed to accomplish, which is blood flow, which is no more mental fog, increased mental clarity, raising blood oxidation levels.
Nah, I got down there to hit those burpees and was just like, no. I think it was because I talked too long. I didn't feel like doing them. I tell you what, though, those push-ups feel a whole heck of a lot easier than they did earlier, and I'm far less out of breath than I was. But again, push-ups, man, or any kind of get out and do like a 10-minute walk, anything to get breathing, deep breathing, get the blood oxidation levels high, a natural high, or maybe an unnatural one. I don't know. If that's what you need, if that's what you need to do, then do your thing. But even this, I compare what I do in the morning to what other people do in the morning. And it's ridiculous. And if I was to think that I had to do that, I would never get started. And that's another reason why I'm doing this video, or this whole series, is because I would love to be one of those people who, and I know I use him a lot as an example, But Wes Watson's morning routine, waking up at 2:45 a.m., going straight into a workout, going straight into reading something positive, then I don't know. I mean, I've listened to him talk about it for so long that I know what he's doing, but also I understand that there's a crash out. And that's what's happening right now is a massive crash out. And I'm wondering if it was so many years of 2:45 a.m. wake up calls to where one morning he just woke up and he just said, no, I can't do this anymore. And I just watched one of his older videos from like 2 years ago, and he talks about how he never misses, and how, part of his blueprint, or his blueprint, is the reason that he's successful right then and there. And that was, of course, 2 years ago before his crash out. But I watched a video of him yesterday, a current video, and he's changed up his whole message. It's not Wes Watson fit anymore. It's Wes Watson life. And he talks about how much of life he feels like he's missed out on simply because, he's been in the gym. He's having to, if you're waking up at 2:45 in the morning, you've got to go to bed at he says he doesn't go to bed until 11 or 12 at night. I don't believe that. I mean, you've got to sleep at some point. But my point is, he realized that he was missing out on a huge part of life, this whole socialization thing. So instead of having a ridiculous 2:45 a.m. wake up time that you do for 5 years in a row, where eventually you're just gonna crash out because you can't handle it, man, just do something reasonable. That's what this is all about. It's just like a common sense approach to being a better morning person. That's all this is. But I know that if I stick with it long enough, I'll get better at it. And if I get better at it, I'll be more efficient, and I'll be able to wake up a little bit earlier and get this done. Another cool thing about making these videos and talking is you actually get to be a better talker as well, a better communicator. So anyway, back to Wes Watson and a blueprint. Now he does have his day planned out. He talks about how he posts his posts. He talks about going to the gym. He talks about doing his calls with his client. So we've got like this template, that he's given us through the years. But now that things are just not working out for him at all, you can look back and you can kind of see like the plot holes. And one of the biggest plot holes in the whole system is a 2:45 a.m. wake up call, because there's no way you can be alert and active for your family if you do this each and every day. And I'm basing that statement right there off of my friends who have done that whole 75 hard thing. And oh man, that's got to be like the stupidest thing in the world. Everybody that I know personally that has done 75 hard, what that is getting up at one of these ridiculous wake up times. It's like a 3 o'clock in the morning wake up. You got to read a certain amount of pages in a book. You've got to work out. You got to meal prep, and you're going 75 hard. The only issue is everybody is waiting for day 76 so they can stop going hard. That's the whole point. And the whole point of me talking about it is developing a system where you can go hard every single day without crashing out, without burning out. I mean, making this so much a part of you that it becomes almost ingrained in your subconscious, where these routines, these systems that we're building in terms of getting up and hydrating and doing a little bit of a workout and getting some sunlight. We want this system to be built into us subconsciously so that it's just us, our personality. When we wake up, when we start living our life, it is this system. It is this process. And as we build this process, that's when the pride, and not the bad kind of a pride, but the pride that helps us develop ourselves. It helps us show us who we are and who we are becoming. That's the growth. We always concentrate so much on the result, and I am like number one, world's worst for that. Always looking at the result and not the process that gets us there. But really, it is the process that teaches us who we are, good and bad. And the bad parts, we, we've got to keep adding to our process to address the weaknesses. It never ever stops. And if it does stop, you're not living anymore. I'm not saying you're dead, you're 6 feet under, but when the personal development process, when it stops, you're no longer living. I think for me, that's the biggest takeaway. That's improvement. Improvement is life. Movement is life. Self acknowledgement, self recognition, and self improvement are the fundamental key aspects that keep us alive because we don't want to be a walking zombie. There's so many people who live in that margin of despair. They're cognitively dissonant from their goals and dreams because nobody's ever taught them thoughts, words, and actions and how important a conscious congruency is to maintaining and developing a person. Man, I think I could sit here and ramble about this all day, but I've got to go eat some breakfast and drink some coffee. Actually, my mouth's kind of dry now because I've been rambling so much. But man, let's have a great day. I'll catch you guys tomorrow.